سلام دوستای نهایت گرامی، امیدوار هستم که همگی جور و سلامت باشه. خوش آمدین در برنامه وانا در خانه The Wana Show. دوستای عزیز، تشکر از ایمیل های خوش صحبتتان، از پیام هایتان. اگر شما کدام انتقاد دارین یا نظریات دارین یا میخواین که میمان برنامه ما شوین، میتونین با تماشاین کت خودم با ایمیل آدرس که در پرده تلویزیون است، و اگر میخواین که تکراری برنامه ما را تماشا کنین، میتونین از طریق یوتیوب چینل ما The Wana Show تکراری همه برنامه ما را ببینین. خود دوستای عزیز، میمان برنامه امروز ما میمان خارجی است. یک دختر خانم است از نپال. دختر جوان است که اصلا سال تولد خود نمیفهمه، سن خود نمیفهمه. این دختر مثلا به یگان مملکت ها، حتی به امریکا، مثلا سکس ترافیکینگ است، هیومن ترافیکینگ است. به افغانستان خو از این گپا زیاد است. She is a survivor of child labor. وقتی که یک طفل میگیرن و سرازی کار کده میرن، مثلا این دخترک به یک بندیخانه وری زندگی میکرد. اینجا روز 10-15 ساعت سرازی کار کده میرفتن و بینمی بینمی بندیخانه وری یک اتاق بود. اینجا تشنابم میرفت، نانم میخورد. 10-15 روز سرازی دختر 9 ساله کار کده میرفتن تا که این دختر نجات پیدا کرد. و امروز ما داستان از این خانم میشنویم. بیشتر سوالای ما به انگلیسی می باشد چون این دختر از نپال است. So today's guest is a young girl from Nepal who is a survivor of child labor. Some children end up in human trafficking, sex trafficking, and some end up in sweatshops. So she ended up in a sweatshop as a 9-year-old girl living in a cell. She was eating, using the bathroom in the same area. She was living in horrible, horrible conditions, and today we are going to hear her story. Welcome to our show, Nasreen. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Wana, for interviewing me and being here. I hope that you all can hear me. Thank you to all the audience who are going to hear my story. It's not very happy story, but I hope and that this will bring some awareness and courage to the people who are still stuck in the sweatshop, that nobody has to go through the experience that I've been through. So thank you.
Wonderful, Nasreen John. A question for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Your story is so strong. I did so much research, watching videos about you last night and so forth. Who is Nasreen Sheikh?
So Nasreen Sheikh is like, now I'm a very aware woman what is happening in the world against all these 40.3 million people is like slavery. And now like I'm aware and awakened and knows that much more about the world than what I used to almost like 20 years ago. Like when I born such a small rural village on the border of India, Nepal, like a dusty, undocumented village, not found on any map or any books. And the people who born in that village, either they die or born, they don't have any birth certificate. So for that reason, I also don't know how old I am. I can always guess maybe 25, 26, 27 years old.
Yeah.
But I really don't know how old I am. And so you can, like, I want people to think that and think for a moment and ask yourself, what challenges would you face without, social securities or driver's license or passport or, that bank accounts,
Yeah.
like in what ways it will disempower your life, Could you go to school? Could you obtain a proper employment or even rent a home in the city if you need to? Could you receive a medical treatment if you are sick? Could you even file a police report if something happened to you? Like, can you do that without a document? No, right? Like people will be like, yeah, bring me your document, but I don't have. So our life in these rural villages are so disempowered and taken away from us everything that we don't even deserve to have a birth date. And I still struggle to the date to figure out my birth date. And I have made my own, but it's like it's challenging. So when I was in the village, it was very, very much male dominated society. I witnessed a lot of atrocities happening against women and girls. And I was like little child scared all the time. And my own older sister, when she was around 12, she was arranged to get to be married, and when she turned 16 she was immediately married off. And I knew I will be the next, and I had no one support, no role model to look up to. I am so naive to the world, and I'm feeling like like I just don't want to be like my sister or like every other girls who are so like beautiful beings being forced into marriage at a such early age. And I saw my sister crying and like don't wanted to get married, and she wanted to like read and wanted to do something different, just being forced into marriage. And when I saw her process of going through that marriage, it was heartbreaking for me, and I felt so alone. And that is when I would just go into the forest and I would just spin myself in the nature and look at the sun and look at the moon and just talk to them, like just be that was the only place that I find a little peace.
Yeah.
And slowly that helped me feel a little bit courageous, a little bit like like I felt like this tree could talk to me somehow. I don't know, it sounds weird, but I felt that awareness in my body. And then slowly I was like taken from village to the city, in Kathmandu, where that is where like I was around 9 or 10, very very young. And I have because it was so different, like I have lots of memories that I remember for the first time walking into the street, going through the mountains, coming to the city.
It was
And
different, something very different for you. You had never seen the city life.
yeah, I have never seen mountain before, so I was like, what are these? Like when I saw the city with the tall buildings and I see these windows, I was thinking these are doors. Like I had millions of questions. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing in the city, like when my way is like through the bus, like I was in the bus. So in the bus I could see outside and I see like women driving and women doing things, and that just felt like, wait, what is happening? Like it was like so many questions I had. But within 8 or 10 hours I was put down into this small 10 by 10 room with 6 others. And we were like, just from that day one, after like 1 or 2 hours later, I was literally like, okay, let's do this work, this work, this work. And then after a month, like I'm literally like making so many clothes and stitching and working in a sweatshop.
Nasreen John, I have a question for you. When you left the village, did you leave with your parents' consent? Did they know that they were taking you for work?
They were like, my father, he worked in as a welder. I don't know if you know welder means.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, of course, a welder, yes.
yeah, so he was working as a welder in New Delhi, and his working condition was so horrific that his brain, he lost his power to think. Like he became paralyzed with his brain, and a lot of issues with his health before I was even born. So my father was taken by the car industry as a welder. Like he was repairing all these old cars and fixing that. And my mom was pregnant with me, and my mother, like she had to literally steal a bread from other people to
Yeah.
like not feed herself but feed my older sister. Like that was the poverty like I was born into, and my mother was just so all alone in that, and my father was gone and taken, and um, like his whole everything was taken away from him, and his mind was taken away from him. So my mother was alone, and she wasn't aware of like of the situation, like the victims or the injustices was so normalized in my society that it's hard for the mother to know, because my mom was also like very very much suppressed and oppressed with one situation after another, because of the poverty, and she doesn't know how to take care of her
And all
daughters
the
and children.
pressures on the mother, all the pressures on the woman of the house.
Yes, yes, everything was on her, and she's uneducated. She doesn't know about the world. She doesn't even understand what his dream means. Like, she has no idea of like hope. And then all of the sudden, she has two children without a husband, without any incomes. She doesn't know how she's going to feed the girls. And then she has to literally like steal bread from other people to
To
feed my
feed you
sisters.
guys. Yeah, to feed you guys. So you were taken. So my okay, actually, this is very important. Nasreen John, can you tell us what the definition of child labor is?
So child labors is like you somebody, and I will just give my example because that is what I feel like I know the best. So like I was in this 10 by 10 room, we were forced to work 12 to 15 hours a day, and if we did not meet our deadline, we would not get paid at all. And to keep up with the work, I literally slept very very little, and I remember we had to splash cold water on my face or listen to the loud music. And then that is where like there were like so many moments that I felt like my fingers were moving as fast as machines, and literally like I was surrounded by pieces of clothing day and night. I literally like started to hate those clothes. I started to like literally like saying like whoever is going to wear these clothes, I hope they can feel my tears, I hope that they can feel my blood, and they are not going to feel good wearing these clothes. So I was literally making every stitch. I was sending an energy to that clothes that whoever is going to wear this is going to wear my suffering within that clothes. And I tell people like if you don't know where your clothes or where your things comes from, 100% you are consuming suffering, human suffering. You are not only destroying the environment but also consuming human suffering.
Wow. That's a very good point, a very good way to put it. I'm sure when you came to the United States, you realized you're basically making clothes for people to wear here, correct?
Yes, like for the first time I came to US in 2015, and that is when I walked into this major department store, and I was with one of my friend, and when I saw those clothes, I was like triggered, like oh my god, like this is where these clothes are being sold, because you know the whole like that like same, you know, say like similar clothes and thousands of pieces, like say copy paste of thing that I was like. And then I saw that, and I when I saw those clothes, I didn't see clothes. I literally saw my experience as like somebody's sufferings were hanging in there, and people were like buying very happily, and people were looking for even discount, you know, like
Yeah,
how can you get those suffering in a discount? And then like no one is asking question where those things come from,
you're
who
right.
makes it. Like they were so disconnected from that source of manufacturing, and people are like consuming those very happily. And I feel like I was able to see the whole understanding about that disconnection that people were having. Like if people will knew that I was in the sweatshop working in that conditions, and if that was written in that shirt, I don't think people will buy. But our story never being told, like we always get cut off. And for that reason, that our story will be not told, that is why they take away from us the birth certificate, they take away from us the citizenship, or they don't give us a passport or anything. So we will be always like unheard or unseen,
Yes.
and always like work 15 hours a day and keep working like a machine.
Yeah. They put you guys in the dark.
Yes.
Yes. Nasreen John, when you were taken to the city to work, what were your living conditions? How did they treat you?
It was so my living condition was horrible. There was so many times that I couldn't even breathe, and especially when you have like thousands of materials like hanging around you, it's like those chemicals are very raw. And I tell people, like, if you will know how much chemicals are put into our clothes, you will never wear them. And I have seen as a first hand like those like clothes being like like dipped into those chemicals, and that would stay in our place. And I did not even had a bed and neither a pillows. So in the evening, like around 11 or 12 o'clock, because all the time like midnight we had to go to the bed. So in the midnight we would take all of those clothes and we will make them as a bed, and then we will make those clothes also as a pillows and then sleep on that. And in the sweatshop we didn't have the windows or like or anything, and the bathroom was like 10 other sweatshop people were going into the same bathroom, and some were like smoking and drinking, and it was so disgusting that it has even had a worm, and like it was so bad. And then not only that, in my food I would always find threads that got into the food, because we were making, and in that room like a little spot was there, and then we would have a little stove, and then in that stove we were cooking the food. So
Oh my
very
God.
like I don't know if people can even imagine the tiniest kitchen with just rice and lentils, and sometimes we would have a rice with like bugs and stuff, and we would just eat. And like those all the dust from the clothes, that was the most hard for me, because I would eat and then I have to like pull out from my mouth the thread, and it was, and I was just so scared that it will go to my like my inside my stomach and wrap me or something. So that was really hard
Yes, of
situation.
course. Nasreen, in countries like Afghanistan, Nepal, there's very little value to women. Very little value to women. And you were a 9-year-old girl in an environment like this with mostly men. How did they treat you? Was there any type of abuse? Did they treat you unfairly?
Yeah, it's like I was still, when I go to Nepal, I am treated very badly, and as a woman, I don't have a voice that I'm supposed to have, and especially when I was in the sweatshop, I didn't have voice at all. Like
Yeah.
I was slave, like whatever they will tell me, I just have to do it, and like no opinions, no talking, just keeping following whatever they do and making sure that I complete their needs, like on time, making sure that everything is put together before they ask me any other questions, in order to not get into a punishment or anything. So I feel like a lot of the women in South Asia's are majorities of those 40.3 million people, and in which 29 millions of them are women and girls. Those all numbers, that number is they like they're silent in their accents, they're in opinions, they are slave, they're hurting. They are also dying because of this pandemic right now,
Yes.
and we don't have a voice. And even if we try to speak up for ourselves, most likely we will be tortured, and we will be like, like that is how one of my aunt was murdered in the village when she was trying to speak for herself. She got murdered, and that fear still stays with me. And it's a very scary situation, but I feel like women have infinite amount of patience, and we have our own way of like dealing with the hardest things that we can. And I want that power to have that woman, so they can use the patience to get out of the trauma and work always towards your own values that you represent as a person. And someday, not today, not tomorrow, but someday, you will definitely find a way that there are person who will help you, who will let you speak for what you stand. So that is how it led me where I am today.
How did you escape from this horrible nightmare? Who helped you? I mean, how did you get out of this? And how old were you when you escaped?
So when the sweatshop was like, so it's very, one thing that I want to bring attention to is like, it's very easy for the agent to make the workers for work for months, 2 months, and not pay them on a time. And it happened to us also. Like the agent made us work to, like, produce thousands of pieces, and then he took our money and disappeared. And when he disappeared, we were like, oh my god, like we don't know what to do next. And a lot of the people, like in my sweatshop, they went to another sweatshop to find a job. And I was like, I literally became like a street kid. And when I was in the street, that is when I met kind strange kind and complete strange person. And he I don't see, like, there is some angels in the world, and he was one of the angel for me. And he was a monk. He traveled all over the world, and he was speaking many different languages. And he lived across the street that I used to be sitting around and walking around. And one day it was around 6 a.m. early in the morning, and he was taking his dog outside, and I was very, very scared by dog in that time. And that dog tried to come near me, and I get freaked out. And then behind this dog is this gentle, kind man, and he said, like, don't be scared, he's like my son, come here, fed him. And when he told me come here, fed him, it was my first time ever that somebody have told me come here in my entire life. So I just grabbed his wrist and told him, Uncle, please teach me. Like, I just wanted to go to the school. I wanted to have a book and shoes and socks and backpack, so I could just go to the school. That was the whole only thing I was dreaming when I was on the street. He might would have been a bad person, and this is how exactly 10,000 plus women just in Nepal gets into sex trafficking, but in my case, I had a nice person that took me, and he started to give me education, like how to read and write. And since I started to have that, then I took a small tiny loan from the, we couldn't take even a loan because I didn't have any document or anything. So I had to take a loan from the people in that area that used to give like a very, I don't know what type of loan that calls. Like, it's a very micro loan, but it's only people to people. So they gave me a little loan, and with that loan, I was able to have the machine, and then I take my the craft that I learned in the sweatshop, and I started to make my own bags and purses. And then my teacher would come every day, give me a class for 1 hour, and then I sell these crafts to the store this time. And when I started to sell into the stores, I had a little bit more money than before, and then that is how it led me slowly to work with the women who were the very, very vulnerable. And after time, like when I was around 16, I opened a local women's handicraft shop. That is where it became like a hub for all those women who are victim of sweatshop, single women, abused and abandoned by the
That is
society.
amazing.
Yeah, I started to take them into my place and started to teach them what I had learned in the sweatshop. And then once they learned, it's like it became like it's like in 2012, like our shop was in Forbes magazine. It's like when you do things from the heart and from very intelligent mind, like everybody is so creative as a human we are, I think, but trauma lead us to the negative path. And I felt like if my teacher wouldn't have come on time, I would have been just like my older sister, like who I have not met her for almost 13, 14 years.
Wow. Wow. Where do you think you would be today if you were still in that sweatshop?
I will give you an example. Like one of my uncle, he was a child labor for the textile company. And when he was in his 20, he lost his eyesight because when you work 15 hours a day and looking at the same thing and you have very low nutrition food and very bad working conditions, it's effect on the body. And body is like it's like you need to take care of it
Of
on
course.
the physical level. And because many people don't have, and he was like he got blind. When he became blind, then the sweatshop like throw him out, literally like tell him like no job, you go back wherever you need to go. And he came to the village, and in the village nobody was able to support him. So when he was around 28, 30, he died. And it happened to all of his three brothers because they were also very, very poor, but they died. So I might have been dead, I might have been forced into marriage, I might have been in the sex trafficking, I might have been like, like a victim of like very heavy oppression. But I feel like there is like, it in Hinduism or somewhere that I read that it takes it, like how can you stop God, like how can you stop the nature?
Yes.
Like the power of nature will be not stopped. And I think that led me today, there were angels and whatever is following me, like I am,
They're with you
something
at
is
all
leading me.
times. They're with you at all times. Nasreen, in Afghanistan, where I'm from, I mean, children are severely put into child labor work. And I mean, right when you arrive, you see children all over the streets, and there's actual companies that are using these children just to make money for themselves. So most of the labor in Afghanistan is done by children, by kids. What can we do to prevent this or to bring awareness?
I feel like, first of all, like countries like Nepal and Afghanistan, we are lacking a lot of with our basic needs. Like, we don't have even clean drinking water, we don't have education, we don't have, a safe space, we don't have food in our plate. So our basic human rights is taken away from it, and I feel like this is something is big. That is where I think more companies, the company who care about humanity, a government that cares about humanity, should step in and help provide the support for the family who are very, very vulnerable. Like my mother, she would never wanted me to be a worker in a sweatshop in that severe conditions. But because nobody and none of the society was supporting her, it was like that was the way of life that was normalized. So I feel like poverty in Afghanistan, in India, and Nepal is very, very normalized,
Yes.
and it's taken away from us very, very basic things, and it's a lot of struggle. And the people on the ground, as a victimhood, like a lot of children who's working, they need somebody who can just save them, like who can just build a platform of, like, instead of sweatshop, let's build a school, you know, instead of like having these many, many hours of, like, a lot of women also work in these sweatshop. They work for many hours, and instead of paying them low minimum wage where they can't even afford to send their children to the school, start paying them little better, you know, little higher cost, so they can afford a basic human rights. And I feel like this will start from the companies, you know, who are buying and selling, and then also on the government levels who really cares about humanity, because there are, like, definitely government knows about it, and people in the power are not using the power that they're supposed to use. They don't think that this power is a responsibilities. They more take it as a, like, a granted, and they think like they deserve it. And when they think that, it's actually puts child who are in the risk actually lose their life. They lose and they traumatize and they die. And so I would really encourage even small businesses or large businesses and the government to please, like, step into to that humanitarian cause, and then also enable like living wage, or like a wage that will paid and support basic human rights for all these 40.3 million people who are, like, still, like, this is just according to the data, but I feel like there's so many people, and pandemic is pushing it and taking us more behind in this mission. So yeah.
Nasreen John, you are in America, correct? You're in Portland now.
Yeah, I just came 2 weeks ago. I was in the village, rural village, for the last 7 or 8 months, working to provide emergency relief, food, and then we helped around 360,000 meals. And, like, it was very, very, very challenging. I myself, I couldn't be even outside. The whole villages was run by, you know, very traditional and, like, very superstitious and, like, men.
Oh, okay.
And then it was very hard for me to help and bring that support in that village, and I had to work a lot of the time behind the scene. But I slowly, like, very, like, it was challenging. I interviewed around, like, in this 8 months, around 400 women, and 99% of them did not even know how to sign their name. Many of them did not even know that how many children they have, because they were so traumatized by the poverty, like their mind and their brain was not working. Like, when basic human rights is taken away from somebody, they become disabled, they become more dependent on the society. And this is what all these women were when I was in this village. And yeah.
Wow, you are amazing. I am so impressed with you. So incredibly impressed. What is your purpose now? Now that you're here in the States, and you've kind of regrouped, what is your purpose?
My biggest reason for me to be here in America is to I'm launching we have launched a project called 1 million mask. 1 million mask, which is like 2-ply organic cotton. It's a very ecological, eco-friendly mask, and then that 1 million mask will feed 10 million people. And so I want to raise awareness around through this mask about eco-friendly products, but also talk about many, many villages who are facing right now pandemic and they're being hungry. Like I have seen so many children in the village being hungry and not having foods. The parents are so worried, and then that leads to domestic violence, and then eventually people are becoming more suicidal. So, and I have seen like some of the horrible domestic violence when I was in the village. So I am just like here in America to reach out to as many platform I can to bring an awareness around these immense amount of poverty that people in the villages are facing, and then also bring help to ask people to buy sustainable or donate or purchase these masks so we can feed 10 million people. That is my like this year goal. And also I have been a part of this 40.3 million people who are still suffering on the modern slavery, and most of those people are in India, Nepal, Afghanistan, Pakistan. And I want to share their experience by sharing my own experience as a child laborer survivor, but also forced marriage survivor. Like when I was, even though I was doing all these things back in Kathmandu, my parents and my society still expected me to get married with a man that I have never met or talked. And that was just like, that's like, just
A
can you
nightmare for
imagine?
you
Like,
just thinking about it. I know those things are very normalized back home in our countries, and it's very sad because you see them giving away 12-year-old little girls to these old men. So you're definitely a blessing, even for your village. You're a blessing today because you're helping them. You know, from your experience. You know, I feel like your story, it's so much deeper than that, because you lost an aunt that was murdered. You lost an uncle that died from this. So it's something that's very, it's very close to your heart, and it's a cause that I feel like you're never going to give up on.
no, oh my God, never. Actually, I feel the huge urgency because a lot of my cousins in the villages are being forced into marriage. And I know, and I'm the only girl still, like, until it's like who have ever escaped forced marriage. Only the girl that who's running the business, or the only girl that who ever been, I mean, I've been to US or overseas, you know. It's like the only one. And like my mother, she doesn't understand me what I'm doing, and she thinks that the, you know, her awareness becomes so small that it's hard for her to even comprehend and understand. So I feel like the only my, because I'm so clear with my purpose, and my purpose is to eradicate sweatshop, to eradicate these child marriages and, you know, forced marriages that is happening to the girls. I really want to build a society which is more focused on sustainabilities and more into creativity than consuming people suffering and being disconnected within ourselves. Many people, like, you know, I see even I have met like a really very high rich people, and I ask them where your clothes come from, and they don't know. Even they don't know. So people who have millions of dollars in their bank account, they are also disconnected within themselves, like not knowing where their things come from. And when I point them, like, we have to learn from, like, we have to become a kindergarten person now, where
Yes.
we need to start learning about where our things come from. Am I consuming the suffering? Am I like promoting and supporting these 40.3 million people who are still stuck on these conditions? Because like look, those clothes were like exported from Kathmandu to all over the world, you know, and it happens from same, like Afghanistan gets exported, India gets
Yes.
exported, Bangladesh gets exported. So in the form of clothes that we are buying and trading, it's not on the ethical values, and these companies needs to bring these values. And that's my whole thing. Like, I want to bring that connection to the people, what they consume, what they wear. It affects not only them, but it has a whole like connection to all the way to rural villages, and then it goes to become more hardship on women and children.
You said that growing up, you didn't have a role model. You didn't have anybody that inspired you. And you grew up in a very small village where I'm sure you were disconnected from the internet, social media. But now that you are out in the big city, you've traveled, you're in America, you're more connected to the world. Who is your inspiration today?
Like, it will be a little funny, but I feel like all the women in those villages are my inspiration, because the condition they are in, and they're still fighting for better life. They inspire me, like not giving up, and still like taking moment by moment and step by step, and trying to find a freedom for herself and for her children and for her community. That is like the inspiration that I feel, and I have it all the time. And I also get so inspired by the force of nature, that nothing is permanent. And if I am here and I have a limited time, I want to make sure that every breath I spend consciously making sure that I am not being a part of harm. I want to be a part of something beautiful and positive energy. So that is like my inspiration, and I just see so many problems that needs to be fixed in the society, and those problems are like is like kinds of like gives me like, okay, we need to work on those things and address that. Yeah.
If you were to write a book about your life, which I read that you were in the process of writing a book, what would you call it?
We were thinking to call it Resilient Her. And Resilient Her of the idea was just like, no matter like how much hardship as a humanity that we will go through, women women is the one that going to save this planet. Like, if we step into our leadership and our leadership and our like the energy, the power that we have as a woman, that we see things differently, we feel things differently. If we raise our resiliency that we have within ourselves, we will be able to create peaceful world. And so I was thinking to give that book name Resilient Her, but I'm not so sure, because when I went to Nepal just this last 8 months, I have been so much focused on saving the people right now, and trying to feed them, and trying to like educate and bring these women into our center so they can learn skills and become independent. So my book has been a little bit in pause right now, but I will, like, really, when I have the free time, I will start working on that, because so many memories that I have that I feel like would be really helpful for the people to read about it.
Where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now? Where do you see yourself? What do you
So
see yourself
by
doing?
Yeah, I feel like in this coming years, my goal is to empower marginalized and disadvantaged women with skills and education. 10,000 women by 2025. We have two centers, one in Kathmandu and one is on the border of India and Nepal. It's not in my village. It's like 3 or 4 hours away from my village. I'm not feeling so comfortable to go back to my village yet. But I was like wanting to help in that area more women. So my goal is to help 10,000 women by 2025, like not help them, but empower them to become a leader and become a financially independent. So that's my goal. And then also in these coming years, I really want to represent and become a voice of all these 40.3 million people who are still experiencing and living in a modern slave. and my dream is to enable them a basic human rights. Like we should have, like the world should come together and enable these people access to basic human rights.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Nasreen John, you are a hero. You really are. You are a hero. What you stand for. Your story is very touching. You taught me a lot because now I'm going to think twice before I purchase something. I feel like we're so disconnected from the manufacture process where we have no idea what's really going on and what people are put through just for us to wear these designer clothes.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the disconnection. And this I say to the people, like everybody is buying and selling, and slavery is connected to even chocolates and the phone that you have, the clothes that you're wearing. These are all of the information that we don't know how the manufacturing is, the whole supply chain is like cut off from consumer. I think this information needs to come forward and share, like which company made it and what are their values. Are they using child labor, are they using forced labor, and are they like making people work 15 hours a day and giving them only $2, so like in Nepal and India, like these are all these manufacturing hub, and we make so much thing, and then our rivers are dead. We don't like right now being in Kathmandu is smoking 10 cigarettes a day because of the pollution, and all of these manufacturings happen over there. So all of those pollutions are also there. So we need to let people know that one t-shirt or one jeans takes 300 gallons of water to make, and that water one person can drink for a year. So we are stealing the resources from the nature, from the people, to pollute our nature. But also, like, we don't need to have 20 t-shirts in a year, like
Yeah.
people are buying 40 times more than they used to buy 20 years ago just in America. So there's so much fast consumerism. There's no ethical and slow fashion movement going on. Like it's like how can you bring people into an awareness of these issues? So I think if people make a choice of healthy consuming and slow fashion, and supporting small businesses and fair trade are the really good ones, because they have 10 principles of values that they follow. Supporting those organizations would be the best, not only for the people but also for the planet.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I truly enjoyed this. And how can our viewers connect with you if they wanted to get in contact with you? Through Instagram, Facebook? Do you have a website?
Yes, thank you so much. We definitely need support from all of your viewers to please take this message seriously and help us spread our word. And if they can visit on social medias, they will find me. We have empowermentcollective.org. That is our website for the nonprofit. And then we have a social business, which is called localwomenshandicrafts.com. That is where people can find all these ethical and natural products to purchase. And then also, if people want to connect with me, they can visit nasreensheikh.com. That is where my all information is. And I think the only thing that I will say to the people is, you as a consumer have the power. Your money is like your vote, and how do you choose to use that power to make this world beautiful? Because there's so much problems, and we think like, how can we help? Help starts from one step. Let's make a step figuring out where your clothes come from. Let's start making those choices that you should wear only fair trade clothes, and that you know that it's not coming from the harming place. So let's start making the decisions wisely and eco consciously.
Thank you so much, Nasreen John. Thank you. And as a woman, as a human, I support you on any cause. Whatever support you need, please feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Thank you so much, Wana. You have been just so amazing, and thank you for connecting with me and
My
sharing and
absolute
helping this
pleasure.
message.
My
Yes,
pleasure. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely stay
thank you.
connected. Thank you. Have a
Yes,
good day.
thank you.
Bye
You
bye.
too, my dear. Bye.
خب بینندای عزیز، اسم از این خانم بود نسرین شیخ. میبخشین که به انگلیسی صحبت کردیم چون این دختر خانم از نپال بود. بسیار قصهش جالب بود واقعا. فکر میکنم که این موضوع مخصوصا به افغانستان بسیار یک پرابلم بزرگ است. اگر میخواین که تکراری برنامه ما را تماشا کنین، میتونین از طریق یوتیوب چینل ما برنامه ما را تماشا کنین. انشالله تا برنامه آینده ما دوستای عزیز، امیدوار هستم که هفته خوش و آرام سپری کنین، مخصوصا وطندارای عزیز ما که برنامه ما را از افغانستان تماشا میکنن. شب و روز خوش براتون میخوایم. خداحافظ.